personal brand creates immense opportunity. As a founder or any business person, a personal brand can really give you a push forward. In this video, we're going to look at the exact steps you need to take to build your own personal brand. This is Raw Startup. I'm the founder of Vivino, the world's largest wine app and wine community with over 60 million users all over the world. I've also brought on some experts. They really know about personal branding.
The number one question I get from CEOs these days is, can you help me create my personal brand?
A lot of the most successful companies of our time have founders with really strong brands, if you think about it.
People want to connect with real people. They don't want to connect with corporations. The cool thing is, if you think about personal brands, it's kind of like a flywheel. Once it gets going, there's so many benefits to it. Podcast invitations, event invitations, maybe you'll get contributed articles and so on. And the beauty of it, the more people who follow you, the more people, of course, gets into that flywheel. That means every time you post, instead of 10,000 people seeing it, maybe it's 20,000 people the next time. Maybe it's 30,000 people.
Building a personal brand has always been a big part of my journey, and it's helped me throughout my career as a founder. Even this video could be something that helps build my personal brand. Hopefully. We will be very specific and look at which social channels we should use to build your personal brand. We'll go deep on each platform and cover every single big platform. This will be very interesting. It turns out that the three of us in this video use different social channels, but we have one channel in common, one channel that we all use. Let's get back to that later. First, let's have a look at why this is important.
The reason why it's so important is because they see the power that a personal brand has. It's about being able to attract the best talent. It's about being able to win new business. It's about being able to have such an aura of thought leadership around you that you get invited to speak at conferences, to contribute articles, to be seen as a pioneer in your field.
I would actually argue that not investing in building a strong founder or executive brand in 2022 or 2023 might actually be the biggest missed growth opportunity for a startup or a scale-up, because there's just like such a big overall impact of your startup in practice. It's like a marketing engine of its own to have a strong personal brand.
I'm also sure it helps when it comes to raising money, post it on LinkedIn, and the bigger personal brand you have, the more likely you are to succeed. With that, let's get started. Number one, create your position in the market. First thing to figure out here is what we want to talk about and who we're going to speak to. We look at three questions. What values do you stand for?
You can be known for whatever you want. It's really about showcasing your passion. For me personally, it's marketing, it's leadership, it's about being a good human being. If you're all over the place, people don't really know what you stand for. So number one is really kind of defining your values.
What's your area of expertise?
So I talk about things that, I have expertise in, which is a lot about marketing, of course, growth, branding, leadership, and things like that. I don't talk about things that are outside my domain.
So you want to talk about subjects that are hot within a niche. That's how I used to do it as well. So I talk about tech and innovation. Like what I write mostly about is also diversity and inclusion, being a woman in tech. So that's something that resonates really well with me and my community as well.
And what do you want to be associated with? I'm sure you have some ambition, and then this part becomes important. Where do you want to go in the future?
It's not just about what you have expertise in, but it's also you have to think about, what do I want to become maybe 3 years from now, 5 years from now, because it's a journey that you have to go on to get there.
You have your personal brand as well, so you also need to be careful what you associate that with, like both on the good side and the bad side. So your personal brand kind of it's your reputation that comes like in front of you. So I think a big part of that is also realizing, okay, if you're associated quite a lot with this person, or you do things in a specific way, that's also how people will remember you afterwards.
And yes, any association can be good or bad. This is about looking into the future and associating yourself with whatever you want to be in the future. Number two, pick the right channel for you and your audience. Now let's have a look at the different channels. And in a sec, we'll look at what the three of us use as channels. What's our primary and what's our secondary. We all have different mixes, but we all have one channel in common. Back to that in a second. The channels are about format and frequency. Whatever matches you the best, matches your audience the best, and the work you want to put in and get the most out of it. It has to be something that works for you. First, we have LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the number one when it comes to business. It's a great way to connect with your network and the people that work in the same field as you.
It's where I connect with other like-minded professionals, and because LinkedIn is the main B2B social platform in the market, it's definitely the best place to be building a community if you're a B2B startup founder or executive as well.
LinkedIn is, because it's people's real identities, you're interacting with people who are working in companies and you can see who they are. The conversations tend to be much more civilized than on any other platform. It's just a fact. And people also take pride in what they write. It's a very positive environment in general. It's a great way to build thought leadership and your personal brand because, of course, it says exactly right next to your photo where you work and who you're associated with and so on.
You basically have all formats here, but it's also a good format for longer written format. LinkedIn gives you instant reach. There's very little paid content to fill up, so your content will get reach right away. LinkedIn is a really good place to start building a personal brand, and it can happen pretty fast. Frequency here is medium to low. Once a week is fine, but you can also do it once in a while.
There's a really huge potential in LinkedIn right now, in particular, as far as I can see, because only 1% of LinkedIn's more than 800 million users actually create content on the platform. So if you want to stand out, LinkedIn is the obvious choice, if you ask me.
It's just, there's such an opportunity there. Like Mike said, over 800 million people, soon going to be a billion, I'm sure.
With that many people not posting and very little advertising, your post will get a lot of reach. That's exactly what I experienced too. I've had big posts that reached hundreds and thousands of people. I did a full video on how to post on LinkedIn. Please check that out, link in the description. Next is Twitter. Twitter has everything, but it's also very opinionated and there's a lot of politics. Business is there too, but there's a lot of opinions and it gets ugly at times. Not nearly as civilized as LinkedIn.
Who the fuck knows what's happening with Twitter these days? Twitter is kind of like the Wild West of social media platforms. But in general, it's a very different kind of vibe that's on Twitter. Yes, you can have a huge following there, and many celebrities do, and many great thought leaders do as well. But it's much more around, I would say, sharing real-time thoughts, insights, breaking news, and so on, right? Just expecting that there's going to be a lot of trolling maybe that happens based on what you post, because there's a lot of bots on that platform versus other platforms. But in general, it's a really good platform. I would say it's just shorter thoughts, much more real-time, and kind of anything goes. That's not true of any other platform out there.
The format is short and fast. Although Twitter is huge, it takes a long time to build an audience there. You have to engage and post for a long time before you get a real following there. I made a full video on how to do that on Twitter, so please check that out, link in the description. What I love about Twitter is that it can be fun and entertaining. It's just a very fun place to be.
Twitter is a great platform to be picked up by the journalists as well. So if you have something on your mind or some thought leadership aspect you want to get out there, there's a ton of journalists who are like looking for interesting stories on Twitter.
This is important. There's a lot of reporters on Twitter. It's a great place to be seen by a reporter. Frequency required here is high. You probably need to post or engage in some way on a daily basis or at least a few times a week. Twitter is a great way to maintain an audience. If you're famous already, it's a good way to keep them engaged. However, it might be harder to become famous on Twitter. Take a look at this. If you look at the biggest accounts on Twitter, these people were famous already. They did not make it big on Twitter. What does that mean? It means you might have to build somewhere else and then go to Twitter. Next, we have YouTube. As you can imagine, I love YouTube. Formats, obviously video. First, there was short form, then it was longer form, usually 5 to 30 minutes. But with the introduction of shorts, there's also TikTok-style short videos now. So a bit of everything in video. YouTube is a platform where you can really grow an audience organically, almost like no other platform. But it also takes a long time and a crazy amount of investment. I took 4 years just to get where I am now. And you could say I have some success, but it's not a runaway hit just yet. So if you're willing to invest a lot and keep going, YouTube might be for you.
It's one of the most dedicated and loyal followings that you have. I mean, they follow everything you do. Once somebody clicks that subscribe button or follow button, they become like your super fans, and they will, your video shows up right at the top of their feed. They'll listen to it, they'll share it, and so on. I think it's a very engaged channel, but it does take a while.
YouTube really gives back to great creators. There's no doubt about that. I'd say frequency is low here. Once every 2 weeks is fine. It's a lot more about quality than frequency. So how often are you guys on YouTube?
Every day.
Basically, everyone is on YouTube. We mentioned that Twitter was for people that were already famous. Now take a look at this. This is the most subscribed accounts on YouTube. These people made it on YouTube. They were not famous already. That's the strength of YouTube. You can build something totally from scratch and become huge. Next is Instagram.
I think Instagram is more of a consumer-oriented platform as well. And there's definitely more of a visual aspect to it than, for instance, LinkedIn, where you do these long posts. And I would say the platform demands more visual content from your side as well. On my own profile, I tend to post more private and informal content compared to some of the other platforms I'm on. So I think it's a good page to do this behind the scenes kind of look. And the fact that you can do stories as well just makes it super easy to grab a snapshot of what you're doing in the moment and share that in a super informal way with your community.
Definitely more consumer than business. Obviously a lot more visual. That's also the origin, showing photos on what you're doing right now.
I think the stories is really the secret to that platform. You can share photos and videos on many other platforms, but the stories makes it less intimidating because you can kind of like connect with people in real time, and it goes away in the next 24 hours or so.
I think you need to post, like, if you want to do it properly, you need to post like real pictures a couple of times a week, like on your feed. And then you need to supplement with stories on a daily. That would probably be the ideal way to keep continuously engage with your audience.
I'd say frequency here is medium to high. If you do stories, you probably want to do them every day or almost every day.
I think it's also a question about timing. Some of these platforms have had like big influencers for a long time already, where LinkedIn seems to be more of the upcoming platform when it comes to this aspect, and TikTok as well. So the window of opportunity is right now on those platforms.
And just like with Twitter, Instagram is for people that are famous already. They did not build their audience on Instagram. Then we have Facebook. Facebook really doesn't have much use here. It's mostly paid, and you can't really build any audience on Facebook anymore. I consider Facebook pretty much dead when it comes to building a personal brand. Then we have the big newcomer, TikTok. TikTok is huge and growing. It's also incredibly competitive. It's really, really hard to break through. But if you make amazing content that users like and engage with, TikTok will push it. They will put you in front of millions of people. Format is mostly video, used to be very short, but getting longer and longer. Still short though.
They're highly produced, they're highly choreographed, they're very well edited, good lighting. I'm like, man, this is like a full-time job. I think a lot of people who post those videos that are really great, they do spend hours and hours every day on it.
Frequency is high, and you probably need daily posts to make it on TikTok.
You also have to find out like what platform fits your profile as well, and also the brand that you're trying to establish. If you're trying to maintain an image of yourself where you need to post 3 times a day on the platform, then and you have no time to do that, then it's just unrealistic that you'll ever get to a point of a significant following.
If you're willing to invest, TikTok is a great place to build a personal brand right now. Okay, we're done with the biggest. There's also a few others. Snap is still huge and growing, but I consider it more of a communication platform than actually a broadcasting platform.
What I'm seeing a rise of is like these personal private networks that people get invited to. I'm part of several Slack groups, Discord groups, even WhatsApp groups. It's like a highly curated network where sometimes there's hundreds, even thousands of people in there. When you post something, you have like a very attentive audience because they've been personally invited in there. It's a great way to meet new people and also build some credibility.
I'm also a part of several of these groups, and I think it's just like a growing community at the moment, it seems like. So there's probably also like a missing platform for this, and that's why people are like creating them that way.
Good point, Mike. And maybe there is room for a new platform here, since people build these groups on platforms not really built for it. So look out for a new platform to cover smaller groups. Okay, good. Let's have some fun. What's your number 1 and number 2 platforms for everyone on this call?
My number 1 platform is LinkedIn, by far. And number 2 is Twitter, which is kind of my testing ground for LinkedIn.
Yeah, my number 1 is definitely LinkedIn, and that's the professional page for me. And then Instagram is number 2. That's more of my personal profile.
Mine is, without a doubt, YouTube number 1 and LinkedIn number 2. Now take a look here. LinkedIn really is a fantastic way to build a personal brand right now. My advice here is really to win one platform and then move to the next. But you should have a secondary platform from day one, more as a testing, but also not to be totally dependent on one platform. Don't try and do all of them. Just do 1-2 platforms. Find the right platform that matches your format and frequency. Format is text, short, long, medium. Maybe it's a picture, maybe it's video. Whatever matches you. Frequency is how often. Make sure you find a platform that matches the effort you can put in. Basically the format and frequency that fits you the best. On top of that, we have PR and events. Articles in the media, appearances on podcasts and at events.
Being featured in the media is a big part of building a strong personal brand. And from my own experience as a founder earlier on, I learned along the way that you will get way more inbound requests from journalists and reporters who want to do stories about you and your startup if you have an established personal brand as well. And the reason behind that is that the big business and tech media want to drive traffic to their websites because they want more readers. So they also know that if they write a story about a person with a large following, there's a lot of examples of that right now, this person's followings will also most likely go and read the article. So it becomes this win-win situation where both sides are getting something out of it, because as a founder, you and your startup get more exposure, and on the other side, the media gets more readers.
Really good point here. It goes both ways. They want your following, your personal brand, and whatever traffic you have.
The cool thing is, if you think about personal brands, it's kind of like a flywheel. Once it gets going, there's so many benefits to it. Podcast invitations, event invitations, maybe you'll get contributed articles and so on. And the beauty of it, the more people who follow you, the more people, of course, gets into that flywheel. That means every time you post, instead of 10,000 people seeing it, maybe it's 20,000 people the next time, maybe it's 30,000 people. The benefit of having more people follow you is not for vanity is because more people see it, which gives you more exposure. That's the reason why that matters as much as you can.
It's this like self-reinforcing cycle that goes on and on again. And it's a really big competitive advantage to also leverage as a founder and executive.
Number 3, adopt a test and learn approach. Test different kind of tactics and see what works best in practice. Data is your friend.
For me, you know how a comedian, before they actually go into the big arena to actually do their material in front of 20,000 people, they go to the small nightclubs and they kind of test it out. That's kind of how I think of Twitter. I oftentimes post unformed thoughts on Twitter first just to kind of see if I get any kind of reaction. And if I do, and sometimes I do, I'm like, oh, there's something here. Then I go and work on it a little bit more, and then I bring it into a bigger platform where I have more followers.
Test different kinds of posting tactics on social media and see what performs the best in practice. Try out posting different hours a day, different content formats, look into what the data tells you and double down on what performs well.
It's kind of random when things start taking off. That's why you have to test it. For example, I had a post recently. I posted at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning, and it was one of my few posts that got over 250,000 views and kind of likes and engagements. Huge takeoff. I'm like, Saturday morning? Who would have thought, right? People always say Saturday morning is kind of the graveyard for posting anything.
This is also where you can use a secondary platform. For Robin, LinkedIn was number 1 and Twitter number 2. He used Twitter for testing. For others, it might be the other way around. Number 4, be consistent and keep going. Post content on a regular basis. Be active at least on a weekly basis. And it cannot be a one-way street where you just post. You have to engage with other people's conversations too.
Consistency, like make it a habit. You know, if you just post once and then come back a quarter later and then suddenly you post twice in a row in 1 week and then you don't do anything, very inconsistent. People forget about you. And then finally, time. It's not going to happen overnight. You got to have patience. Like it's taken me years to build up my following. I'm sure it's probably taken you 2 years as well to build up your following. It's going to take time. So you got to have a little patience with it as well.
People's attention span is super short nowadays. We're bombarded with content, news, and ads on a daily basis. So if you want to stay top of mind and build a brand with people, you really need to be active, like on a weekly basis, best case on a daily basis, and post content, answer the comments, engage in conversations to build a strong community.
That's a key point. Is it's not just about posting and then ghosting. It's really about posting and engaging. Super important. The most followers you'll get, the most engagement you'll get is actually from engaging with the people who are engaging with you. So engage back, not just on your own content, but other people's content as well.
You want to repeat your message again and again, and you want that consistency so that people actually get to know you and what you stand for and what you represent. And to do that, you need repetition.
You have to find a frequency that matches you. YouTube is maybe every 2 weeks. TikTok is daily. You have to find a platform that matches you. So find a frequency and keep going. Number 5, follow profiles that inspire you. Study others and look for inspiration from other profiles that do personal branding really well.
I would recommend to follow some people in the first place that you are inspired by and fascinated by. People with strong brands that you can study, observe, and learn from. It's not necessarily people I agree with on everything, but it's people that do really well when it comes to personal branding and that I look for inspiration in.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see what you're posting for sure, but I also want to engage with the other people who are actually commenting. If you post a video that's super interesting, I bet you get a lot of comments. I want to maybe engage with those comments. It's a great way of not just, building your community, your kind of following, but also actually learning something new.
Examples of huge personal brands where the personal brand really has created their career are. Elon Musk obviously has a huge personal brand. Gary Vaynerchuk, same here. He's incredible at personal branding. He's like a content making machine. Is it also about being seen by the influencers and creators?
There's certainly the thought that maybe they'll see, but I think that rarely happens. I mean, I can't think of it often because I oftentimes think actually the really big profiles, they'll post and they'll ghost, unfortunately. But I think that's true because it's oftentimes, I think, not themselves. Unless you're Elon Musk on Twitter, then it seems like it's actually him.
It's very much himself.
It's very much him, right? But a lot of people, I think, they just post, and you can tell from because they never engage with any comments at all. So that's why actually I think a lot of I would call it the semi-celebrities, people who have maybe tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of followers. They usually post and they engage, and that's super fun to engage with them back. The ones who have millions of followers, and I get it, they can't engage with everybody who's like, commenting on their stuff. So I get it, but don't expect anybody, celebrities to engage with you back. It just rarely happens.
Take a look at these 5 steps. You go through these steps and you're on your way to build a fantastic personal brand. If you want more content just like this, please consider pressing like and subscribe and you won't miss any future videos. Thank you very much for watching Raw Startup. Now stop watching, go build something.